From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. The Association of Caribbean States meeting in Venezuela has come to a close. The main finding at the three-day meeting was that climate change remains a huge problem for the region. The Caribbean states have agreed to sign a disaster management agreement to strengthen their resilience. At the closing ceremony, the ACS thanked countries like Venezuela and Cuba for coming to their aid after the twin hurricanes last year. Member nations say countries like China and Russia have also been very proactive in talks about funding infrastructural projects.
Day 2 of the ACS meetings focused on the fight against climate change and natural disasters. Delegates said these issues should be at the top of the Caribbean nations' priorities.
Cooperation doesn't work by the way of charity. What we need is cooperation by way of solidarity and fundamentally cooperation among southern countries.
Bolivia, which is an observer in the summit, backed the call for integration. It proposed creating a cooperation agency following the model of the Bolivarian Alliance for the peoples of our America or ALBA.
This is not a new phenomenon. It is linked to development. Our revolution has been concerned about these issues since a long time ago, and we have been trying to get knowledge and tools to face natural disasters.
Finding external financing to support the Caribbean region is another main goal. Countries such as China, Kuwait, Iran, and Russia are actively participating in these discussions.
I believe it is really important because, as we know, the United States is quite aggressive against Venezuela and other nations that are here. So I think Russia's role is very important to try to balance. We have very good friends here, and it is important that we came to strengthen development and our relations.
Over 250 million people live in the Caribbean region. Promoting sustainable development and strengthening ties through different transport and trade agreements have been the most important achievements during the summit. The ACS meeting closes on Friday with a visit of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro.
Our correspondent Freddie Gillingham is at the closing session of the ACS in Margarita, and he joins us now live. Freddie, what was said at the close of the meeting?
Hi Soini, and welcome back to the final day of this three-day summit at Margarita Island for the ACS. We've just had Jorge Ariasta, the incumbent foreign minister, give a kind of closing ceremony, although sessions won't be officially ending here till around 1:30, but he did address the crowd here. Of course, we have people from around 68 different countries who've descended on this Venezuelan Caribbean island over this period of this week. He highlighted various things, both from the present day, but also back from the past. He highlighted a brief history of the Caribbean, highlighting events such as the Haitian Revolution, Grenada in 1983, and of course the Cuban Revolution, events which helped shape this region, but also events which helped shape the world. He also, on the present day, he focused on a recent trip that he made to Delhi. They just struck a solar deal. He was welcoming Caribbean nations to be part of this new solar power initiative. He also brought attention Venezuela's new cryptocurrency, the Petro. He was introducing that to be used in the Caribbean. And he welcomed the British Virgin Islands as a new associate member to the table, and of course Saudi Arabia, which is now a new international observer for the ACS. Finally, he ended with offering a statue of Hugo Chavez and Simón Bolívar to Nicaragua. They will be taking over the presidency from Venezuela this time round.
Thank you so much for that. We've been talking to Freddie Gillingham. He's at the ACS conference in Margarita. In Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell took the oath as the elected Prime Minister. The new national party, the NPP, won all 15 seats in Grenada's elections on Tuesday, which means Mitchell will govern with no political opposition in Parliament for a third time, the second consecutively. The NNP victory means that Dr. Keith Mitchell will become the Caribbean's longest service Prime Minister if he serves the entirety of the next 5-year term.
On Tuesday, March 13th, Many Grenadians from all strata and all sectors of our society gave us their vote once again. And as I begin, and must say, we begin this latest term, we ask you and every other Grenadian one more favor. Please give us your prayers.
From Grenada to Antigua, as Antigua is preparing for its upcoming general election coming up on March 21st. Prime Minister Gaston Brown is promising a landslide victory, much like the one Keith Mitchell had in Grenada. Brown's comment comes amid accusations from the opposition United Progressive Party that voters are being bribed to relinquish their voter cards. To give us a better understanding about what's at stake in Antigua and Barbuda, we're being joined live by political consultant and pollster Peter Wickham. His company Cadres has been tracking the race. Hello, Peter. So tell me, who's leading in the elections in Antigua and Barbuda at the moment?
Yeah, well, in Antigua, it's pretty clear that the Antigua-Barbuda Labour Party is out front. They have been leading in polls consistently. We've been running polls for about a year now, and they seem to have been maintaining the lead. And my sense is that the status quo at this time is not in jeopardy.
And we just mentioned that Gaston Brown is predicting a landslide like what happened in Grenada. Is that likely? And by landslide, I mean taking all the seats in the parliament?
Well, I mean, in a sense, he only has three. And the three that he has, in all instances, there are three new candidates that are running again. So one could argue that he is well placed to take all the seats. It is entirely possible. The polls are showing an increased popular vote that he's likely to be able to take. So statistically speaking, it is entirely possible. However, I'm perhaps not as bold in my projections as the Prime Minister to say that it will happen. I would just say that I think it is possible, yes.
And we know that Antigua and Barbuda just weathered that horrible hurricane in September. Barbuda was decimated. How is his response after the hurricane going to help him win votes or help him with the electorate actually in this election?
Yeah, I think it's clear that he got a bump. The hurricane ravaged Barbuda more so. And he's been very good to Barbuda, and several of them are still living in Antigua. And one of the significant victories is that the courts have just decided that Barbudans can vote in Antigua in the next election. And the presumption is that the ones who are in Antigua are sufficiently comfortable that they would want to vote favorably for the Antigua-Barbuda Labour Party. The Barbuda seat is always a very delicate one. It is won or lost by a single vote often. So I think that he is a little bit more confident on this occasion as a result of the way that he's responded to the hurricane scenario in Barbuda, that he will be at least he will be able to win that seat for sure, which helps him with the other ones on the mainland.
And another sensitive issue, of course, is the land issue in Barbuda. How are Barbudans rating the Prime Minister's response to their concerns with land ownership?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are two sides to the story. I would say the progressive-minded Barbudans, the ones who are interested in owning land, the ones who are interested in development and so on, support it. The ones who support the Antigua-Barbuda Labour Party tend to support his position on land ownership. The other is the more conservative Barbudan is uncomfortable with the idea because they see it as a land grab. The reality of the situation is what he's proposing is that Barbudans can now do what Antiguans can do and what most of us in the rest of the world can do, which is buy this plot of land they actually live on for $1. That is essentially the crux of his proposal, and he's also initiating other developments in relation to land. It has not sat well with several of the more conservative Barbudans, and my sense is that if you are inclined to support the Antigua-Barbuda Labour Party, you will be supportive of his approach to land, while if you are of the BPM variety, which is the opposition, then you probably will be opposed to it.
Okay, thank you so much for chatting with us, Peter Wickham. We appreciate your comments. We've been talking to Peter Wickham of Cadres about the upcoming Antigua and Barbuda election. Other news now. The assassination of Peace Corps councilwoman and human rights activist Marielle Franco has caused an uproar in Brazil. The country's Chamber of Deputies held a ceremony in her memory to demand justice.
Representatives and social leaders walked into the chamber carrying flowers and yelling out Mariel's name. Mariel served on the commission investigating the current military intervention in Rio de Janeiro. Her assassination happened one day after she reported on the murder of civilians at the hands of the military police.
Since Rio is currently under military intervention, there are those who believe the military police had a hand in her assassination. We believe this investigation must be carried out at the federal level, led by federal police. This is what we demand from the public ministry.
The solemn ceremony at the Chamber of Deputies condemned the killing of Mariel Franco and her driver, Anderson Gomez. Many believe this is a result of the military intervention in Rio ordered by Michel Temer's illegitimate government.
She protested the coup and the military intervention. This was an execution of a human rights defender in a country known for the extermination of black youth and the LGBTQ community.
Rio's military intervention has put a soldier in charge of a state that actually needs social policies. They've given Rio's police the power to outright murder people, and this is what's happening. She decried recent youth murders, and she was killed too, just like they kill other women, like they kill indigenous people and workers.
Claudia Vieira's daughter knew Mariel, so her death hit close to her heart, not just on a personal level, but for what Mariel represented.
She was a feminist leader, a woman who must respect and admire. I'm here today as a woman, as a feminist and as a mother. Alice Vieira is suffering for the loss of a remarkable woman, a warrior, a black councilwoman, an exceptional politician.
Mariel's assassination caused an uproar all over Brazil, with protesters now demanding an investigation to expose the culprits.
The United Nations Human Rights Office has also condemned the assassination of Franco. It has demanded that the authorities fully investigate the case immediately. The UN said the investigation must be transparent and independent to be deemed credible. On Thursday night, 50,000 people turned out in Rio de Janeiro, and there were protests in many other Brazilian cities to protest against Franco's killing. Franco had campaigned for the rights of Rio's poorest and fought against police excesses. She also stood out in the region's male and white-dominated political scene. There was an explosion in the province of Esmeraldas, north of Ecuador, near a building of the National Army. According to the Ministries of the Interior and the Defense, there were no fatalities or major damage. In an official statement, the government confirmed the detention of 3 people in connection with the explosion. It also confirmed the region is under a state of emergency. In January, a car bomb exploded in the police headquarters, leaving more than 24 injured and 105 homes affected. We'll take a short break now, but join us again after a look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Because the people of Grenada and the leadership of Grenada speaks English and therefore can communicate directly to the people of the United States.
Isn't nutmeg that's at stake in the Caribbean and Central America? It is the United States national security.
Welcome back. Bolivian President Evo Morales is on a state visit to Spain. He has met with Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy and Prince Felipe in Madrid. Morales will be discussing bilateral matters to further deepen economic ties. During his visit, he will also ask for Spain's support for visa relaxation for Bolivians to enter the Schengen countries. Peru's Congress has accepted a new request seeking to dismiss the nation's embattled president, Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. Peru's Congress will vote next week on whether to impeach Kuczynski over alleged bribe-taking from the Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht. The opposition won 87 votes to unleash the impeachment process, the same number required to have the president impeached in next week's vote. In Paraguay, the Senate passed a controversial bill that makes it harder to remove lawmakers. The opposition calls it the Parliamentary Armor Law. It broadens the requirements for a vote of no confidence. Critics from the opposition say it will protect criminals in the Senate.
When we most need to fight against corruption, it turns out that President Cartes and his party push a law aimed to protect the offenders. Can you believe this? He says we have to wait for a judge sentence to remove a senator, and sometimes it takes years for a sentence to be given.
Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says he's ready to face his jail term and will wait for the police at his home. He claims this in his forthcoming book to be launched next Friday. In the book, Lula tells inside stories of his trial as well as the impeachment of former President Dilma Rousseff. Lula was sentenced last January to 12 years and 1 month in prison for corruption and money laundering. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is calling on the country's youth to embrace and therefore benefit from cryptocurrencies. He says young people should create cryptocurrency farms. On his Twitter page, Maduro wrote that the new digital work plan for young people can mine world currencies. Cryptocurrencies are a priority for Venezuela. It launched the oil-backed petro this year as a means to circumnavigate U.S.-imposed economic sanctions. Venezuela is also making sure the new U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, gets the same message given to his predecessor, Rex Tillerson. And that message is, there will be no coup.
There can't be a military coup here. We are in the middle of the 21st century. I need to say this to whoever talks about a military coup that we are in 2018. A military coup. This is part of the past. Now there have been attempts. Someone will always conspire. The empire always tries to move puppets in Venezuela, to warm up something impossible, to warm up for obscure purposes, which is the national forces in Venezuela. This is not going to happen. The military forces in Venezuela are politically mature enough. They are respectful of the Constitution. They are respectful of human rights. They are respectful and admire democracy.
Time now for another short break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Ahead of the presidential elections in Russia on March 18th, several volunteer observers have stepped up to ensure transparent elections across the country. Over 6,000 members of Golos, a non-governmental organization, will monitor Sunday's polls. The international community has been closely watching the election proceedings, and Moscow is keen to ensure a legitimate and clean election.
A peculiarity that we are seeing in 2018, which is a direct consequence of how strongly society protested in 2011 and 2012 against vote rigging, is that the authorities, administrations, employers started reacting more actively at such signals. If such a story becomes public, there's a chance that they start backpedaling.
With opinion polls at 80%, Russian President Vladimir Putin is widely expected to win. His nearest rival, Pavel Grudinin, the Communist Party candidate, is currently polling at 7.1% approval rating. And if all goes as expected, Putin will be re-elected for the fourth time and will be set to rule until 2024, thereby becoming Russia's longest-serving leader since Stalin. And finally, here's some headlines from around the world.
The Libyan Coast Guards have rescued nearly 200 refugees between Thursday and Friday off the coast near the capital Tripoli. The majority of the refugees are women and children from African countries. According to the International Organization for Migration, more than 3,000 people perished at sea last year. Libya remains the main departure point for sub-Saharan African migrants trying to reach Europe by sea. The European Union has recently announced it would train Libyan coast guards to reduce deaths at sea. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has visited the town Dapchi, where more than 100 schoolgirls were allegedly kidnapped by Boko Haram a month ago. He met the parents of the missing girls at the same school where they were abducted. There has been wide national and international criticism against the government over its failure to locate the girls. It is the largest abduction in the country since more than 200 Chibok girls were kidnapped in 2014 by Boko Haram militants.
I hate to listen or hear anything about these people or even see their pictures. We haven't gone back to school yet, but I don't want to go back to the same school, but I want to continue my education.
French pensioners have held a protest in Paris against higher taxes on social security. According to the new reforms, people will have to pay more taxes on pensions, over $1,000 per month. 9 unions call for a nationwide day of action against the economic measures implemented by President Emmanuel Macron.
Thousands of people have fled eastern Ghouta in Syria in the last 2 days. It's been 3 weeks of intense fighting between the Syrian forces and the armed groups in eastern Ghouta. Hundreds have been reported killed in the clashes. On Thursday, large numbers of people were seen walking with their children and belongings in Hamaria. The Syrian government arranged for humanitarian corridors for people to leave to safer places. Thousands were also reported leaving Afrin in northern Syria. And finally, in a show of solidarity with displaced Syrian children, hundreds of teddy bears of all sizes have been placed on the steps of a Berlin concert hall in Germany. School children in Berlin made a giant pile of over 700 teddy bears to represent the 700,000 children displaced in Syria in recent years. The organizers' World Vision Group intend to donate the teddy bears to refugee children in Berlin and Jordan after the demonstration. Well, that brings us to the end of this newscast. For these and many other stories, you can watch them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for telesur English. I'm Sweeney Gray. Thank you for watching.
Hemos estado presentes en cada acontecimiento protagonizado por nuestros pueblos. Unidos por cada sintonía y transmisión, apostamos por una nueva visión latinoamericana. TeleSUR extiende su alcance hacia el público caribeño. Desde Antigua y Barbuda, cada día trabajando por el mejor entendimiento y comunicación. TeleSUR, la señal informativa de América Latina.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. A team of journalists in 25 locations around the world. 3 broadcasts to convey our people's reality.